if you've got the January blues or they don't have your size in those shoes, then we know a remedy that ain't no ruse. It's called Welcome Everyone to the Poetry News. R.Sen, Squigs, Eddie, how you doing? You well?
Doing great.
Oh my God. Really upping that intro game, huh?
Or trying to match you, Eddie. Your intros are far too good, so got to do what I can, right? Fantastic. And so we have another fantastic show coming up this week. On the Poetry News this week, we have cliches, we have poetic alchemy, and we have experimental poetry. But we start this week with Angela Carr. Angela is a Dublin, Ireland-based poet who runs a wonderful blog that lists literally hundreds of open poetry submissions. Just in December, for example, there were 140 poetry submissions listed on the blog. And there are loads more for January and every month going forward. It's a real labour of love. The blog lists any kind of poetry submission, paid, unpaid, $3.99, R.Sen, fee paid from all around the world, and each one is with a link, a summary of what they expect, and the closing date. Really easy to navigate, really well organised. And the information also from the few that I checked seemed really, really accurate. There's also a PayPal donation box to donate if you can, because quite rightly, Angela points out that this takes quite a lot of time to make each month. But yeah, if you're looking for lists of hundreds of poetry submissions for every month, more than you could possibly submit to, head over to angelatcar.wordpress.com. Squigs, Eddie, R.Sen, what do you think? What do you think about this? Do you know Angela's site before, or what do you think about this?
I don't think I have heard of this site before, but it is extremely important and useful to have such a site because sometimes you're just overwhelmed. You just don't know where to look. Especially, I remember when I started sending out submissions and all that. I was like, where do I look? How do I found? Is this good? Is this bad? Should I trust this website? Should I not? Etc. So I think having such a website is important. It's important. That's the big word. It is very important for every poet out there to have.
I definitely agree. I mean, I did not know about this site, but I am starting the process of getting the confidence to try and start to submit my work to places. So it'd be awesome to have something like this. So I can even go to sites where I think that my work may actually resonate. So yes to exposure in the right way. So I love that.
I absolutely agree. I am in the preliminary stages of just working up the nerve to get the work out there. It's almost like I had to mentally prepare myself just to cut loose pieces. Like, you know what, whatever, garbage anyways. But it's good to know where to put it. Good to know that there are places out there that may accept it. I guess it's just a process, right? I mean, they say that every the submission and rejection is part of the poet's life, the process. So I'm looking to be more of a poet. Thank you very much, Martin, for this resource.
Mm-hmm.
Well, absolutely. And I'd say if you're watching, Angela, thank you very much for putting all this together every month. So yeah, please do check it out, angelatcar.wordpress.com. And we'll be back right after this.
Hello everyone, I'm Eddie and I'm the meeting that could have been an email. I'm joining you from Batoon, the north of Lebanon, and I have a great workshop for those who like to take things a bit different than usual. It's 2022, we're done with routines and similarities, and this workshop will challenge you to think of poetry in a different way. This 2-hour workshop titled An Introduction to Experimental Poetry, an Overview of Different Practices, hosted by Nottingham Writers Studio, takes place on Thursday, January 20th at 6:30 GMT on Zoom, and it is hosted by Theo Eve. In this workshop, you will be introduced to experimental writing, like visual and concrete poetry, sound poetry, palindromes and anagram poetry, and conceptual poetry, among other types. You will be able to understand the context and history of each experimental type, explore the work of contemporary experimental poets, break down and dismantle any idea you have had of poetry, and be inspired to try new poetic experiments. A little bit about Theo Eve. The host, Theo, is a poet based between Nottingham and London and has worked on a series of workshops in 2021, which culminated in the publication of Writing Notes 2021 anthology. So this workshop, I repeat, will take place on Thursday, January 20th at 6:30 GMT on Zoom. Check out the link in the description to this video to know more about this workshop. So I would like to bring back my fellow heralds and ask them about this experimental thing with poetry.
Well, first of all, let's address the elephant in the room. You are always the meeting and never the email, okay? Let's put it that way. And secondly, I love this idea because, I mean, how else do people grow up if they don't experiment, right? So I love the idea of this workshop, and I'm totally on board with it.
Yeah, you know, like experimental poetry. They say that, you know, there's poetry around us. And I think that it's great because that's as if to say that that is it in its experimental form. So to have a workshop that harnesses this raw material, that, I mean, just sound. I mean, sound poetry could just be exactly what it is, you know? But then from that, I think could be a foundation to build on more eloquence, refinement. So it's great. Definitely want to check out this workshop.
Absolutely, and I completely agree. And I'd say when you mention Nottingham Writers Studio, obviously I'm based in Nottingham in the UK. I've had the pleasure of meeting Theo, really lovely person, and also a really talented poet. We curated an anthology last year, and one of Theo's poems is actually in it. It's only short, so I thought instead of talking about Theo, perhaps let Theo's work do the talking. So this is a poem about the pandemic, and it's called The City. The city yawns, pulls a patch of grass like a blanket over herself, and hums a lonely lullaby. The memory of horns drifts off to sleep beneath the overpass and abandoned airways, dreams of cars, underground trains tracking through her like rusty blood scraping the inside of metal veins as her lovers press around her as a river to the bank. Kiss her blemished skin, peel parts of her away with their scarlet lips. Oil dripping like blood from long knives of ivory teeth. Wakes up to a brave new world of sea, which she is buried beneath. Exactly. So, yeah, check out the workshop because that's Theo.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing his poetry. Oh, wow. And something, I want to comment on something that Squigs said, is that, yes, you're right, the world around us is full of poetry. And it was, it was Nietzsche who said that any poet should have these two powers in them to harness the chaos of the world and the structure and beauty of poetry and put them together to push things forward, to create a great work of poetry. That is all I have for you today. We will be back right after this with R.Sen.
Hello, and welcome back. It is I again, R.Sen, here for you with another wonderful open mic, and this one is pretty damn cool. And yeah, you guys like alchemy? I mean, I'm not talking Paulo Coelho alchemist, but I am talking creative alchemy. And this particular open mic is hosted by the Queen's Poetic Alchemy Collective. That's right, we're coming back to New York, baby. New York, New York. And let me tell you a little bit about the Queen's Poetic Alchemy Collective. They're a group of creative artists and writers originally from, as I was saying, Queens. And they hold an open mic. They've been holding an open mics all around Queens for several years, slams. And now, because of everything going on, which is good and great and also blah at the same time, they have transformed over to a Zoom-based open mic, and this is the one that we're covering today. So wherever you are, you know you can come right in, because this is, of course, free 99, and it is on Zoom. So all you need is Zoom and your beautiful face and a registration onto the list, and you got it. So let me tell you a little bit about this platform, because it's pretty cool. It's not your typical open mic, but kind of is at the same time, in that in terms of typical open mic, you go and you can share your work, whatever you have prepared. But this particular group believes in alchemy, which means transformation in Taoism, right? So they are influenced by the Taoist principles of internal alchemy, which is based on transformative power of art and writing. They allow you to use their platform to express, explore, reveal, understand, love, transform, and heal. So not only will you be allowed to share your recited poems, your prepared poems, your recited works, musics, whatever it is, they have several rounds, and eventually they go into a freestyle round, which they like to say is in the style of hip-hop eponymous. If you guys have never heard that song, I would share it, but I don't want to copyright us. But if you guys have never heard that, definitely go check it out on your local streaming platforms, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's really cool. It's just right off the dome, anything, right? And it's hosted by an MC named MC Steve, and also a really cool, I thought this was really cool, that they have Dr. Faizan. Dr. Faizan is a psychiatrist, a writer, a spoken word artist, and a musician. So who better to host something like this? And 7:30 p.m. every Tuesday, come on through. All you have to do is RSVP on their link, which will be in their Eventbrite. They also have Facebook, and you hop on their Zoom 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you get a moment to just transform and be yourself. So my beautiful heralds, what do you think of this type of platform?
I think the concept of alchemy is so essential, because otherwise I'd just be a person if it weren't for the words transforming me into a poet, right? I mean, you could do that. I could put myself out here. This is the Poetry Global Network, of course. It's poets for poets. Just thinking about, like, I mean, earlier we had a conversation about, like, children and growing up, and how that is in itself a transformative phase.
Right.
But to focus, an open mic that welcomes the exploration of transformation in a person's work, it's a great opportunity, and I think our work transforms us as much as we transform our work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Well, it's absolutely true, isn't it? And it's the fact that they're mentioning it so explicitly and so passionately. It just gives you, as the poet, it gives you the confidence to try something without fear of an apology or whatever, or something like that. Some mics you go to, you perhaps might have the intention of doing it, but end up going to maybe a backup piece or a safer piece or something like that, just because, not because there's anything wrong with the mic, but it's maybe not a mic so much for that. But this, I have actually been to this event, and I love the rounds because there's not pressure to have the spotlight on you for too long. I love the freestyle element. Obviously, it's all hours for me, but I love to get down to it when I can. And just New York, it's like poetry nirvana, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just, if I've wanted to go to New York for ages, but I feel I have a very different New York holiday from, these bridges and there's Times Square. It's just like, no, there's this event down there. We got to go to it. It'll be amazing. So yeah, absolutely 10 out of 10 for that event. It's definitely get down if you can.
Yeah, I wasn't very familiar with the concept of alchemy. Like, I know the word, I kind of have an outdated, I think, or like a very specific, one-sided, dimensional description of what alchemy is. But now that you've mentioned the thing with transformation and the thing with how it could be expressed through creative writing and through poetry. I believe such an open mic is very important, and it is very interesting, and I would like to attend. Thank you, R.Sen, for sharing.
Thank you guys so much for your thoughts and opinions. You guys heard it here first. Even have a witness opinion. You know I'm not going to bring you anything but the good stuff. Go ahead and check that out, and stay tuned because Squigs is up next right after this break. Thanks so much.
Good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm Squigs, reporting for the Poetry News. And this week, I would like to bring us into conversation about cliches. A quick Google search here from literaryterms.net defines a cliche as a saying, image, or idea that has been used so much that it's no longer creative. Sounds terribly uncreative, in fact. Going down the line here, from poemanalysis.com says, a cliche is a trite, overused expression that has been used until any originality or interest it once possessed had been lost. As well, people ask and search here, how do you stop cliche in poetry? Which www.writersdigest.com provides a list of 8 items. Here we go. Avoid stolen or borrowed tales. Resist the lure of the sensational. Turn a stereotype on its head. Tell a story only you can tell. Write what you know. Keep it real by taking it slow. Deliver your story from circumstantial cliche. Elevate the ordinary. Rescue gratuitous scenes from melodramatic action. Now, starting off as a writer, we've all heard the saying, avoid cliches like the plague, but there are times, yes, and it says here that it can be acceptable in the first draft, but in the final draft, I want to bring back our heralds to see what they have to say about cliches. Is it a stumbling block towards originality, or a crutch?
Well, I think sometimes if you take a very sort of scholarly look at poetry, then that scholarly interpretation gets very hung up on the idea that cliches are bad, cliches are always bad. But it's not as clear cut as that. For one, generally, the first few drafts of anything I'm writing have generally got some cliches in it because you've got to get those ideas out in order to see what works and what doesn't and what you want to change and things like that. And I know some of the words that I noted down from your description, words like trite and overused and used so much it sounds uncreative and things like that. It's like, well, that takes me back to what about the first poem to use that combination of words? You know, you could go back to that and go, oh, that sounds cliche. But if that's the poem that started the cliche, then it's not cliched. And very often things become cliches because they initially sounded good. The other thing I'd like to say about it is sometimes you can rejoice in cliche. You know, people say, oh, cliche is bad or whatever, but I know one of my most liked poems is a poem that takes the compare thee to a summer's day cliche and just goes to ridiculous ends with it. Like, I won't recite the whole thing, but I think it starts off, if you were a Monday morning, I'd sing a storm so strong, I'd skive off work and watch bad movies with you all day long. And it just gets more and more ridiculous. It ends up comparing thee to modern skyscraper design and things like that. And you can play with it because it's funny, because it's not cliched, but people know the cliche where it comes from. And I know I'm rambling a lot, but it's like I was at a Glastonbury Poetry Slam a few years ago, 2019. And one of the final few poems was a poem about, so this guy was performing and he was going through all these different ways to try and say something, and each way was a cliche, but the way he did it was so captivating and so empowering, with just the way he was going through it to try and find the things that weren't the cliches. So it's all about how you do it, I think. You know, cliches aren't always bad.
Exactly. This is what I was going to say, actually. Like, in general, like if you use an overused line, something that has been said a lot, sometimes the delivery, sometimes the place in the poem, the content of the poem, the idea of the poem, yeah, you'd be like, come on, it's a cliche. We don't want to hear that. Move on. Next. Whatever. We can't say thank you next because we might get flagged. Uh, but what I love about cliches is a few things actually. The first thing is when they are used mockingly, when they are used to drive the idea home and make it funny. The second thing is when it is changed a bit. So it's not, for example, tell me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are, or something like that. It's something along the lines of tell me what you, I don't know, what you dream of, I'll tell you something. I cannot think of something else now. But what I like about these is that you take a cliche and then towards the end, you shift it, you change it, you give it something new. This is something we're already as listeners, we're used to this. But then you get to the end and there's this striking moment. This is what I like about the use of cliches. But come on, avoid them, especially for newer writers. I would suggest do avoid them. Find something there. Your first draft is there. It has cliches. Cool. Look at this exact image and try to change it. Try to see how you can paint it in a different way. But I think seasoned poets could use some cliches if they use it in an intelligent way, in a tricky way. I talked a lot. I'm sorry.
No, I love it, and you guys, the concept that you guys, I agree with you guys, but I have a confession to make. Um, the way my manuscript started. Do you guys want to know what started my whole manuscript for my book?
Love to.
Please.
Realize.
Classic.
Classic.
So I'm super guilty of using cliches. Like I'm not even gonna try to say that. I think now if I go back and look at, actually you could probably find that on YouTube and blackmail me with it. I've known, and the poem was called Smoky Mirrors, like every cliche ever, right? And so that poem was like the one that gave me the confidence to start performing and also gave me the confidence to start writing my manuscript. So yeah, I agree that maybe a cliche should be, and I try to avoid using cliches too, because it's not like you're a creator, you should be able to you are able to, you have the capability to come up with something more original than realize. But at the same time, I like the idea of cliches because it gives you sometimes can give you an idea for a concept. Like you guys were mentioning, I would probably do it more that way than how I did it now. But yeah, just thought I would share that information, and now I'm gonna go hide somewhere before my poetry.
I will also be brave and step up with R.Sen there. And yes, I have used cliche. Actually, it's to challenge it. The idea that people say, the thing about cliches is that they're so prevalent in the collective conscience. How could you not, how could you not crash into it somehow? How is it so avoidable? But they can be expanded upon. I think a conversation here has been saying that, cliches need not be a stumbling block, but could be a stepping stone towards a wider idea, such as time heals all wounds. I suppose I always hated that quote because like it's almost like in a personal setting, it's almost like saying that the other person need not apologize, that you need to get over it. That over time the wounds will heal, right? So I've expanded in one of my pieces on that quote, I suppose, to say that time heals wounds but cleans nothing of your house, because time also has the effect of degrading that which is unkept, and as if to say that the person as part of the house, because you live there, it wouldn't be a house without you. And maybe that's also another cliche. I'm just saying that challenge cliches. They need not be a stumbling block, as our heralds have said. They can be a stepping stone and need not be ashamed of using them. All right, so That's it for this week. Thank you for joining our conversation. And yes, please, everyone, comment. And what do you think about the use of cliches? Follow us on TikTok and Instagram as the PGN official, as well as Facebook and YouTube for the Poetry Global Network. We'd love to hear from you. Comment, please. As well, check out our other shows that we have on the Poetry Global Network. We have the Poets Lighthouse, of course, this weekend, every weekend, and we have Sobremesa, a Spanish-speaking open mic. So please check out all our shows and join, and we'd love to hear from you.
And we would also love to know what you've thought about the content today. For example, what do you think about cliches in poetry? We'd love to know what you think, because you're all one in a million. But also, what have you been to the Queen's Poetic Alchemy open mic? What do you think about lists of submissions? What do you think about experimental poetry? Please let us know what you think below. We'd love to hear from you. And we are here every Monday at 7 p.m. London time. So until next time, we've been the Poetry News. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
Yeah!
All right. I am not okay.